Hi guys, I'm Darren, and in this video, there be dragons. Hi guys, so I've been fortunate enough to have been sent a Reptile Dragon II thanks to the people at Banggood. So what we'll be doing in this video is taking a look at what we get in the box. This is the PMP version, so we can look at the motors, the servos that you get as standard, and from that you can assess whether the kit or the PMP is the right choice for you. And we'll also have a quick look later in the video at the differences between the original Dragon and the Dragon 2. So let's get over to the desk and have a look. Okay, so first of all, I'm just trying something new out with the microphone, so if the sound is bad, I apologise, but at the moment it's the best I can do. I'm trying to get some sort of clip-on microphone that works, but the ones I've tried so far have been crap, to be honest. So I'm using the same microphone, but I've got it suspended up here, so hopefully it will capture the sound good enough for you guys to hear. So anyway, this is the Dragon 2. This is as it came from China. You can see the shipping label is still on there, so this is how it came. The box has got a few marks in it, but overall it's pretty good, I think. So we can have a quick tip up on the end, and we got the specifications. So we have a 1200mm wingspan, 833mm in the length, 25.7 decimeter square wing area, and a flying weight of 1.2 kilograms. And then this is just the recommended specs for what to use with the model, but we'll compare these with the original Dragon later on. But there we go. So that is the box. Okay, so on top, instruction manual, which is really handy. And anything of note, so first page we have the CG, which is probably the most critical thing in the build. Some basic information, so FPV camera and action camera in the front, carbon tube setups, just an exploded diagram of the model with the two different tails. What else do we have? So some technical specifications, again this is what was on the box, how to put the tails together. Looks like we get some nice little carbon plates, which we're sort of used to with Reptile. So that's interesting. They've actually got a special hole just for T-style antennas, and I guess that is in one of the tails. So yeah, they've got it pictured here on the standard tail, and it's also in the V-tail as well. So they've actually put somewhere to put the receiver if you don't want to put it in one of the wings. So why would you want to do that? We'll come to that a bit later on. Just a general equipment installation guide. It looks like they've got like a PDB, which again Reptile are sort of known for having little PDBs of their planes, and this looks really nice already. Ball links rather than the horrid old style connectors that they used to have on like the S800 and the S1100, with just like the bolt through. And finally the stickers. So yeah, manual actually seems really decent. So there we go, stickers, 77RC, interesting, something different. But yeah, Dragon 2 stickers. So carbon spars, so I'm guessing there's a main one for the middle and the two ones are for the individual wing pieces. Alright, so this is interesting. We actually have 3-blade props. Let's have a quick look at these. So I did read in one of the manuals that it came with 3-blade. The other one it said it came with 2-blade. So these are 7x4 and they are actually counter-rotating. In all honesty, they feel quite flimsy, and I actually prefer 2-blade. They're more efficient, and I don't know about that colour. At least you wouldn't lose it if you crashed it in a grassy field. It should show up. But anyway, so we get two sets of props, which, joking aside, you can't really argue with two sets of props, even if they're probably not the best props in the world. I'll probably look at maybe a 7x5, 7x6 APC 2-blade. I'll do the calculation and see what the 2-blade converts to for load. 2 sets of props, better than no props, 100%. So now we get to our first surfaces. So this is going to be for the V-tail. So yeah, you can see it's for V-tail because on the profile that sits against the rest of the tail, and obviously that goes up that way. Oh no, that, sorry, is the center for the regular tail. That's the other one for the V-tail. So they'll sit like that. But yeah, it's quite nice dense foam. They're just foam hinges, but they're decent enough. It's fairly flexible already, so definitely better than the S800 I've just built, which you need to really work the hinges. What we'll do, we'll get all this out and take a look. So there's the 2 V-tail parts. Again, this is the standard vertical stabiliser and rudder. So that's one of the selling points of this plane, is there is 2 different setups, and this is much the same. Area wise, the V-tail is slightly bigger, but you'd probably expect that. Right, so the next thing actually is this. So it is just a plastic protector, I guess, for the bottom of the fuselage. So I'll set that aside, we can have a look at it later. It's flexible, quite stiff. Yeah, about 1 millimeter thick plastic. There's nothing on there to stick it, so it will just be E6000 or your glue of choice. So now we get to the first wing. So they've actually taped in this section here, which says to me it will probably come out. There's another little carbon piece in there. Again, we have a hinge, not hinges, but just a foam hinge. So let's have a look. So that is actually glued in there, so it is just for shipping. But these are a nice little touch. The balsa plates for the servos, so you just slide the servo in and then put the cover on top, and it will screw into balsa, rather than those, if you remember, the old brass inserts that they had on the S800, which half of them fell out. So that's a nice addition. We also have 2 bolts here, which it's not obviously the motors are over here, so I'm guessing there's some sort of pod that could go on here, possibly for an FPV camera, because there's also a cable hole that goes through, so that could be another mounting option for an FPV camera. But yeah, it's stiff foam. Trying to see, that's so this spar comes to about here, and this one goes all the way to the end here. And if you can see in there is a thread, and that's because it slides on and there's a little screw thing, which I think is a really good idea. So I mentioned earlier in the instructions there's that location for the T-style antenna in the tail. Well, the reason you may want to use that instead of putting it in the wing is because we do have these connections here, but if you see, there's only 6 connections, which is one thing that sort of is a bugbear of mine. We saw it on the ZOHD, Dart XL, the Talon GT, and the new Sonic model AR Pro. They all just have 6 connectors, which a few years ago probably would have been fine, but these days 8 or 9 would be better. So 3 of these are going to be used up for the servo, which only leaves you 3 for your VTX and receiver. Yeah, 1 on each wing. But if you've got stuff like smart audio, you're already 1 over. If you wanted to have a microphone potentially going to your VTX, that's another one. There's other, if you wanted to bring the power from the VTX back to power your FPV camera, you're missing 2. So there are, you can share grounds, but that gives the potential to possibly introduce noise as well. So I'd rather just see a 9-pin connector on all these new models. And there's plenty of space. It would have just brought it out to about here. So yeah, I'd have preferred to have seen a 9-pin connector. So I'll go close up of that if I can. You can see there's 6 pins. But yeah, so that's the VTX side. The RX side, you say you're running Crossfire, that's 4 cables already, so you're already one over, because obviously you have RX, TX, and you have the power and the ground. If you're running FreeSky and using F port, you're all right with 3 pins. If you wanted to run S bus and smart port, then you're again a pin over. But if you're using Crossfire or something, you can actually send Mavlink telemetry back to Crossfire. So people use that for things like antenna trackers and stuff like this. So there are plenty of reasons why we ideally need more pins, and that is why you putting it in the tail might be a good idea, because then you can run as many cables to that as you want, and it should still be pretty well separated. You could actually put your GPS in the other wing, so maybe VTX in one wing, GPS in the other wing, receiver in the tail, and you still have nice separation. The GPS, you obviously only really need the RX, so it sends the TX from the GPS, goes to the RX of the flight controller so it can get the coordinates. You don't really need the communication going the other way. But anyway, that's the wing. So I'll come back to that bag of goodies in a minute. We'll go close up of that. So this is one of the first hatches. So we got some nice plywood reinforcement. We got captive nuts as well for putting things on the top, and it looks like a fiberglass handle there. So the hole's quite deep for the handle, but it doesn't actually go down that deep, so maybe that will come loose over time, who knows, but it seems pretty rigid. But anyway, that's a handle. So these, I'm not sure what they are. They're going to be some sort of skid, I would imagine, possibly underneath the bottom of the tails, but we'll see what that is later. This is all really nicely packed. Everything is in bubble wrap. There's absolutely no damage so far to anything, despite the little bit of damage to the box. It's a nice double thickness cardboard box, so as far as transport goes, it should be really secure. So now we have the first of the tails. This is the traditional horizontal stabiliser tail. So that's actually a really freely moving control surface. So if you notice, there's actually 2 servo positions here. One, and they've also put 2 options in here. So one, I would imagine, would actually be for the rudder. Oh no, there's one in there for the rudder. So that is curious, because it's a fixed. I don't see why you'd run 2 servos on that type of elevator, but maybe it's just giving you the option for what side you want it. Not that I can really see that making much difference, but it looks like there's more to this than just what we have here. So I'll keep this to the side and we can revisit that. Right, so let's have a look at this bit first. So this is obviously the V-tail extension from the fuselage. So yeah, it looks like all this tape is just production. So they've glued the foam together and then put this tape on. It looks like possibly could have done with a little bit more glue there, but it's not too bad. Now this is pretty cool. So this is a little hatch. It's got magnets in, but it looks like it's a position for a downward facing camera. So yeah, I quite like that. And the fact that they've left this plate in means that it could be multi-purpose, and you only need to take it out if you want to use it for a camera. But I quite like that. And you've also got this here for your VTX. So if I was running my receiver here, I wouldn't run my VTX here 100%, but so maybe there's a nice little blanking plate for that. Got a couple of air outlets. So yeah, that's what those were for. So they're little skids to go on the bottom of each tail. So yeah, nice little touch. So that's done. So that is the V-tail. So cable routing, you have a slot down here for your servo cable. So it actually looks fairly big, so there's plenty of room in there to get the plug. And then in the top you've just got a square hole. So it looks like behind there should be a hole as well. Oh no, so you got this bit that probably just needs cutting away, then it's just the mould. So yeah, you can just see down there, there's enough room. But what I would probably do myself is maybe cut a little bit of this top edge away, so that if you needed to get a servo plug in and out of there, you can. There's enough room in the width here, but I think when they're together it'd be a bit small. So I would probably make this hole a little bit bigger on each side, so that if I need to replace a servo, I can just slide it straight down that slot and then sort of fish it through from this end, because getting this end out would be a piece of cake. So that's the V-tail, which, yeah, is probably the option I'm going to go for, because I think they look cooler, to be honest. It's as simple as that. If you know me from sort of some of the groups like Fixed Wing Group or RC Rebels, you'll know I'm a big fan of planks. And unfortunately this is no longer a plank, but I think putting the V-tail on is probably going to keep it the most plank-like, because there's no horizontal. But that's just me. I think either will fly great, and by the looks of it, you could actually swap them over at will if you felt like it. There's no reason why not. Just update if you're using a flight controller, just update the software. If you're using just a standard receiver, just have two different models, and you could then pick and choose whichever you wanted. So this again looks very similar. So it has this plate here, but it seems to be missing the plate on the inside for the downward facing camera or VTX mount, whatever it is. So that's very similar. You can see it in the V-tail. If I get it up closer to the camera, you can see this plywood plate in there is actually just missing from this one. There's a hole there, but I don't think that's significant, to be honest. Here's our horizontal stabiliser. So that will go in like that, and then that's obviously where the vertical stabiliser goes in. Let's, while we've got this here, check out wiring. Obviously these servos here are going to be no problem at all. I say that, it may be worth cutting a little bit out of there, just so you can poke the thing through. And maybe if you're going to just use one side, fill this other bit up, so that if you're poking a wire through, it's got a single path to go down. As soon as it gets out past that bit, it's a nice big open area. We can see it down the bottom, so you see that square, that's where the wire will come through. So there's quite a lot of space there, easily enough for a servo plug. So that will be the horizontal. And the vertical, so again this is similar to the V-tail. It has a short run here down the side, and if that needs to be cut off. If that is in there, it's coming down through that hole, which that part actually looks plenty big enough, and that will actually come out on top of this foam block here. So I would actually be tempted just to cut that block away. If you're worried about strength, maybe put a bit of carbon in there, but I'd be tempted to cut that away, and then there's nice easy access for swapping servos if you need to then. But anyway, that is the horizontal. Right, so coming down to the last pieces now. So these two are the same. They're obviously just for different wings. So you can see it's still got the airfoil on there. We already have a servo plug wired in, which leaves us obviously the 3 slots here. This is the motor mount, and a nice spot here for the ESCs. There's a locator there, and we have the carbon spar hole there, goes all the way through, and the big spar obviously is for this one here. But this is the wheel I was talking about. So if I grab, no doubt the wrong wing, oh no, it's the correct wing. So we slide that in there. I don't know how easy this is going to be one-handed. That will just wind in you know, and a minute and your wings are on. Obviously I'm missing spars, so don't take the strength of this, but I think it would be fine, because obviously there's a spar goes in here, you've got a spar here, goes through the main wing, probably comes into this one a little bit, because you also have the outer sleeve there that runs the whole way. So I think that's quite a nice touch. I think once that spar's in, it will be an absolute, you know, solid joint. If you're worried, you could put tape on it, but I honestly don't think it would need it. So you have power holes down here for your ESC into there, and then this is all going to be in the fuselage. So the motor side of it is completely separate to the wing, which is quite nice actually. So yeah, there's not really much more to say. I mean, I'm guessing again there's going to be another carbon plate on here, possibly matching up to something in the fuselage, but that's the next thing to look at, so let's get that out. So here we have a fuselage. These are obviously the two hatches for the two different tails. So one's for the V-tail, one is for the regular tail. So it's nice that we have everything for both tails, because as I said, we can just swap them in and out if we want. The obviously fixings in the side, so they are sort of designed to be movable. Right, so this was one of the things I was going to be interested in, is what we actually get plug and play. I'm going to put these to the side, and again we'll look at that with this bag of bits a bit closer on the bench. So there's two servos, and we have two other boxes here, and another servo wedged in the front and another one wedged in the back. So we get 4 servos. There we go. So there we go, 4 servos. I guess they're the motors. Right, so if you look at this is probably the biggest difference to the original Dragon. Put that on, you can see that the battery bay is absolutely huge. Now, even though I'm a big fan of planks, I never actually got round to getting the original Dragon, but I've seen one fly, I've talked to people who have had them, and I really was considering getting one. They said the biggest problem was hitting CG, which now this has got a longer fuselage, that should be easier. And also the battery bay capacity, where the original hatch was only to about here, and you had carbon spars in the way and everything. But I'll show you in the diagrams in a minute how much bigger this battery bay is. It's absolutely huge. You've got no problems getting anything in there whatsoever. Flight controller will probably come at the back here, but these are all already glued in. But every single one has battery strap positions, so it looks like you could absolutely load this up with batteries. So there's space in the front for the FPV camera, which I don't know if you'll be able to see it down there, but it looks like it's going to be a micro size. I've got a couple we can just slide in to have a look. It does look like this front bit will come out. It's possibly glued in though. Yeah, that's glued in. And also there's space for a GoPro, and I believe it's a 5 to 7 will fit. I've got an 8, so I'm either going to carve some foam away, or I'll 3D print something to maybe get the session in there. But there we go. That is the foam. Oh, sorry. We'll just have a quick look at how these line up. So that would go in there, and then you can see where the cover here would go for the ESC, and it looks like there's a nice air scoop in there too, just to try and keep it cool. Right, so I'm going to zoom the camera in and we'll take a look at the rest of it. Actually, one more thing. There's that skid plate, which I'm guessing goes on there. So yeah, a bit of glue and that'll be fine. So it has got a, that's too narrow there. So it looks like we'll probably have to cut that back part away. But yeah, it's going to go up on there. Okay, right, we're back in a sec. Okay, so let's take a look at the plug and play parts that we get. So we've got 4 servos. They're all JX servo PS1109 HBs. So they're rated 4.8 to 6 volts. They have a 2 microsecond deadband. They're actually rated pretty quick. So it's 0.9, 0.7 seconds. Torque is not bad. It's slightly less than an Emax, but it's not bad. So 1.65 at 4.8 volts, 1.89 at 6 volts. And they're 9.45 grams. So it doesn't say whether these are metal geared or plastic geared. Let's see. Alright, so a little kit. And they are plastic geared. Yeah, analog plastic geared. I mean, JX, I've used a couple of their servos and they seem pretty decent. I've actually got these ones right here to go in a molded glider. So you can see these are just thin wing profile, digital metal geared servos. They're actually high voltage as well, 7.4. And they work really well. So it's actually a sort of, for a cheap servo brand, they're decent servos. It's just I would probably rather have seen metal geared, but it's not really supposed to be a fast model or anything like that, so plastic geared may well be fine. Yep, there's the servos. Get obviously standard sort of gear, screws, all that to go with it. So yeah, not really much I can say about that. It's a shame they're not metal geared or digital. Probably would have been worth adding a $5 to the cost of the plug and play just to have metal geared digital servos. That would have been nice, but still not bad. They're not the crappiest of the crap. They're not MG90S servos or anything like that. So let's have a look at this box here. So we have some screws for fixing the motor, through washers. See, what I'm interested in is the KV of this. I've seen two different reported KVs and motor sizes. One is the same as the original Dragon, which I believe was 2205 with 2300 kV. So that was one of the readings or the sizes I saw. And the other one was, I think it was a 2306, but with a much lower kV, sort of 1250 kV, something like that, which for a cruising plane would be much better. So what do we have? We have 2306, 1250 kV. So that would actually be a very nice size for cruising. So there we have the motors. They actually look nice. So these are the 77 RC motors. So how they relate to Reptile or whether they're a subsidiary of anyone, I don't know. That's very interesting. So if we look at the motor wire, if you can't read it, it says Sunny Sky. So the motor wires are actually Sunny Sky. So I think it would be a fair assumption to say that 77 RC is actually a rebranded Sunny Sky motor. And I'm wondering if this is what goes on the Albert. 1 second. No, I've just had a look. They're different. But it'd be interesting. They actually feel quite nice. There's no play in it at all. I reckon they could be quite nice motors. If they are rebranded Sunny Skies, or if Sunny Sky make them for 77 RC, then I think this could be a winner. But yeah, be interesting to see how they perform. So that's obviously exactly the same thing. Have they got different direction shafts? No, so they're both counterclockwise shafts, but it's locking nuts on there, so it doesn't matter. Just run it in reverse, because obviously the props, unless you want to run a bright yellow and a grey prop, you'll want them spinning in different directions. Anyway, so that is the motors, the servos. So let's have a look in our bag of bits here. So a sticker for 77 RC, but a cheap battery strap, If you haven't got anything else, then it's fine, but I prefer the rubberized ones. They just grip the batteries a bit better. But there we go. You can't argue at free stuff, can you? Right, so we have our little box of carbon bits. We have these control horns, which looks like exactly the same sort of thing you got in the original S800 kits. So they've been using these for a while. People did slate them, but they are actually fairly rigid and fairly solid. I never actually had a problem with those on my S800s at all. So yeah, we should have hopefully 6 of those. There's a little plate there. We'll find out what the bits I don't know are later on. So here we have our control rods. Let's just get one of these out. They're not bad. I mean, they're not obviously not the best ball joints that you're going to get, but if you remember the Durafly Goblin, and that had the really cheap pop-off ball joints. This is the type that it should have had, and then it would have been absolutely fine. But yeah, they move freely enough. But yeah, we have ball joints, we have locking nuts and hex head fixings. So nice for a plug and play kit. That is decent. Small, just hex head bolts. Smaller screws. So these are regular screws. There's another one. So that's 4. So I'm guessing that they're going to be for screwing in the plates into the plywood in the plate. So that is our little board. We'll look at that later. So that there is probably the GPS cover. A little plate here where you could put your GPS, and that's just a little cover for it that screws on. It might sit a bit tall for my liking. So that's one thing with kits. It's great that they think of these things for you, but sometimes it would be better if you could just choose yourself. But also, like with this plate here, that's going to sit quite high up. You've got this really nice shaped body here, and then as soon as the wind goes over it, it's going to hit that. So I like this idea, but I'd rather they just sunk it lower into the fuselage. There's quite a lot of foam there, so that when make the plate flat, so when it's on there, it's just a nice smooth bit for the airflow to go over. It doesn't cause unnecessary drag. And there's our final 2. So we do get 6 of these. So again, everything is in place to have 2 tails and be able to hot swap them. So here are the ESCs. They're made by Flycolor. So yeah, nice decent cable, 16 American wire gauge, pre-soldered. I would still flush that with your own solder just to make the joint better, but it stops it fraying in transit. And it has actually got a beck inside, which if you're using a receiver is great, and it's 2S to 4S. But yeah, we have 25 volt capacitors, so it should reduce noise from the ESC. So yeah, decent enough. So what's the manual like for the ESC? So far it's Chinese. And on the inside we have English. So we can do throttle calibration, we can set the brake, type of battery, low voltage cutoff with 2.8 timing, different startup types. You've got helicopter stuff in there. Yeah, it's not the cheapest of the cheap, which is really nice to see. So that is all that lot. So next up we have this board, which I will not be using, but I'll have a look at it anyway. So we have a genuine XT60 power connector, 16 AWG, which again this is probably going to be a low current draw model, so that'll be fine. Spare header, which I guess is to go on there if you need it, and some screws to screw it down. These really big plates, so you plug your ESC in from here from your receiver, and then it will split it out into both. So your main battery comes on here. This is dropping it down to 5 volts, which then outputs through that pin there, out to your receiver and out to there. So you don't actually need the BECS on the ESC in this model whatsoever if you're using this board. You just wire this up. So don't connect that red wire, because otherwise that will cause you issues by putting power into this when you don't need it. So this will actually take 6S. Yeah, it can take 36 volts in. So that's quite a nice little regulator, 3 amp regulator. So maybe I'll use that for other projects. But where I'm probably going to go flight controller, I won't actually need that. And the last bag of bits we'll have a look at is this one. So we have these two. These are fiberglass ESC covers. Goes there. So we've got one of these for each side. So that, yeah, nice air intake there to help cool the ESC. So we got 2 of those. We have motor plates. So of course this is a quad motor effectively. So that will get bolted to the plate, which will then get bolted into the motor mount like that. Which means it's nice and easy to change motors. You just unbolt this plate and the whole lot will come off. Yeah, nice setup. Sorry, I keep putting stuff off screen. I've moved all the camera and everything. I'm still getting used to it. Right, so we have these again are fiberglass. So that looks like it's going to be to house your antenna, your VTX antenna in the tail. If you choose to use these, then that looks like the right size for an SMA connector, and then that would obviously lower into the hole. If not, you can use that as a good template to make some 3D printed blanking covers if you're not going to actually use those holes in the tail. So here we go, we've got one there, so that would fit there. Actually the thickness is perfect. Where they're fiberglass, they're not going to interfere with any RF or anything like that, so perfect. Same with those, fiberglass. These are carbon fiber for strength. And then we have finally the servo covers. So we have 5 of those. So obviously 2 wings, 2 for the V-tail, and then 1 for the rudder. The elevator is in the side, isn't it? So it's slightly different. So let's wrap up what my thoughts are of the kit as it stands. So yeah, I think it's going to be a very decent model. The foam is good, it's EPP. Reptile are known for having nice strong foam kits, so no problem at all there. Plenty of space to put stuff. I like the wing connectors. I just wish they had 9 pins rather than 6. I wish actually they had metal geared servos and provided 6 rather than 4, because the only thing stopping you having swappable tails at this point is you only have 4 servos instead of 6. Everything else is included in the kit to have 2 swappable tails. So, but then, you know, another tenner for an extra 2 servos is not the end of the world, is it? For motors, I'm actually really looking forward to trying. If they are rebranded Sunny Sky, they're going to be great motors. The only other thing seems to be, so this tray you only get 1 of in the kit, and that can go where it is here, in that slot here, and obviously you have the second tail which also has both of those 2 slots. So the fact you only get 1 of those is a little disappointing. It would be nice to have at least 2, so you could either have you know, the equipment tray here for your RX or your VTX, or you could have your downward facing camera. But the fact you only get 1 of them in the kit is a little disappointing, especially when it's just a bit of plywood. But other than that, I'm pretty impressed and looking forward to getting it flying. Oh yeah, that was the other thing, the fact that the GPS housing sticks up quite a lot from the fuselage. It's a shame when stuff like this actually, they fit really flush, really nice. So if that had been flush, then that would have been perfect. Everything else I'm pretty impressed with. So actually, one last thing before we go back over the specs for the new one and the old one that I've just noticed is on these battery trays, they've actually got a rule down one edge. So when you put your battery in, get it on CG, just note where the front edge of the battery is, write it on the battery, and you're all done. So if you want to swap from a 3300 milliamp to a 5000 milliamp, you just look at the battery. What's my measurement for a Dragon 2? Oh, it's 30 mil. So I'm going to stick the front edge there and then strap it down. That's a really nice touch, and it's on both trays as well. So if you're using 2 battery packs, yeah, that is a really nice touch. So nice work, Reptile. Right, back on this side of the desk, there's a couple of things I thought I'd go over before we have a look at the differences. So first of all, I tried an FPV camera in there. This is a Cadex Ratel. So this is the standard size Ratel. So it is a micro size camera. It's not going to focus, is it? So yeah, it's a micro size camera, 19 by 19 millimeters. The back end of that fits in absolutely fine, but the hole for the lens will need to be made slightly bigger. Yeah, it's a bit too tight to squeeze it through. I did take the lens cap off when I tried, so no jokes about that. But yeah, the hole does need to be slightly bigger, but the recess in the back is the perfect size for the back of it. So with regards to CG, another sort of downside, I guess, is there's no CG marking on the wing. It's 56 mil back from the leading edge, where this is still actually a very sort of plank-like wing. I don't think they've changed the wing on this at all compared to the original. So it is a very straight leading edge. But it's about where that recess is from the leading edge is 56 millimeters. So down there, it's about, what, 6 mil back from this join here. So yeah, you just put a pin in there and you'll get your CG. But that's the other thing I thought I'd mention. The other thing, in the manual, it does actually, I've had a look, and it does show 2 different types of those plates. One to go in there, one to go in there. So it may just be that the plywood plate is missing from my kit. So if you have one of these and you have either one or multiple of those little trays, it's this one inside that I'm talking about here. I'm not going to cut that out because I don't really know what I'm doing with it yet. But yeah, from there you can just see it in there. So this plate here that I'm moving up and down, let me know in the comments how many you've got if you have a Dragon 2. It may be that there's more than one and I'm just missing it from my kit. But yeah, so other than that, let's have a look at the differences between the two. Okay, so first up, I've made a quick Excel spreadsheet for the Dragon and the Dragon 2. So these specs are based on what I've seen in manuals and video boxes and all that sort of stuff. The Dragon 2 I've obviously corrected for what we have here on the table now. So you can see both of them 1200 millimeters. The original Dragon 700 millimeters. The wing area is interesting. So on the original, in the manual, it's got 27.7, and on the Dragon 2, it's got 25.7. With regards to motors, so the original had two 2205 2300 kVs, and we've confirmed here that the Dragon 2 has 2306 1250 kVs. So a much lower kV, so better for cruising, that sort of thing. So it's probably going to be a bit slower, but I still don't think that's what it's really made for. It is a cruising plane, but possibly one that could be fairly agile. It's not really made for speed. They both came with 30 amp ESCs, which we've seen here. Again, they look decent ESCs. The props are different, obviously, because this one's a much higher kV, so it's a 6 by 4.5, and the Dragon 2 we've seen is 7 by 4 by 3. Servos, I don't know what servos came with the original Dragon, but they were just listed as 2 9-grams. Obviously we have 4 9-grams, and they're these JX PS 1109 HB servos. Both can take apparently the same size batteries, even though I'd imagine trying to fit a 5300 milliamp hour battery into the original would have been a challenge. And obviously the CG is different because the length of the tail has changed. So that's the basic specs that we've seen on the box now. So let's have a quick look at some images. Okay, so this image is an overlaid image, and the problem is I couldn't actually find two images of a dragon taken from top down. So this is sort of the same-ish angle, just to try and get them, to line up. So I've set the wings at the same span, and we have on the bottom is the Dragon 2 with the standard tail, and sort of ghosted on the top is the original. So you can see the wing cord is actually slightly longer on the original. If these images are lining up, as I say, I haven't got perfect top-down images, but it does look like the original did have a slightly deeper wing. So that's where that extra 2 decimeter squared come from. So as I mentioned, this was the best I could do. If I had 2 perfect top-down images, we could have a really nice look. But you can see it's not quite right because the tail looks similar length, and we know that there's 133 millimeters difference. It looks like the nose is slightly longer on the Dragon 2 and the tail is slightly longer. So yeah, I don't think this is probably the best example, but we can see there's definitely a difference in the wing cord. Okay, so now what we have is 2 photos from the actual Reptile-Tech website. So we have the Dragon on the left and the Dragon 2 on the right. So in these images you can actually see that the tail is significantly shorter, and if you look from where the leading edge is here to the end of the nose, you can see once again it's a fair bit shorter on the original Dragon. So you can see on comparing these two where that extra 133 millimeters comes from. And you can see that the GPS has actually moved as well. On the original it was here right in the middle of the wing, and on the new one it's much further back, just by the join of the tail. And that is because all that space there is now battery hatch, whereas on the original it's quite small. But we'll get into a bit more detail of that. So I have more images of the Dragon 2 than the original Dragon, so I'm trying to match them up the best I can. So again, this is the same sort of view. You can see it's much more square nose on the new one, which again, I think it looks good. I liked the original, but I think they both actually look really stunning. So here is a close-up of the nose. So we can compare the Dragon 2 to the original Dragon. Now it doesn't look like there was a space for an FPV camera in the original, and you can see down here there's a pod, because there was a pod for the FPV camera, where I think that is a much nicer idea to put it up front in the nose there. But you can see the battery bay. That's what I really wanted to highlight. So you can just make out the edge of it here. So it comes down to the front and then it stops about, I guess, about 5 millimeters after that hook. So that's all the space you had at the front to get batteries in. And then it looks like the other hatch started about here, went back to in line with the trailing edge of the wing. So there is another hatch round. Yeah, there's the line here. So where the tip of the arrow pointer cursor is where the other hatch starts. Here you have the spar going through as well. Whereas on the Dragon 2, they've obviously listened to people's feedback, and you now have from there all the way to here. You could throw just drop a battery and chances are it will go in the bay. And also we have nice details like these little scoops for airflow. But other than that, it's very, very similar. So there's the join here. So it didn't have those quick connectors like we have on this Dragon 2. So yeah, that again is highlighting the battery bay. It's so much improved. Which, if companies like Reptile are listening to the people who are buying the planes, absolutely brilliant. That's what we want to see. So thank you very much, guys, for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I'm recording this tomorrow is the 1st of March. It's looking like the end of March is when we'll hopefully be able to start flying again in the UK. So hopefully I'll get some maidens up. I've still got to do the Razor, and I should have the Dragon built by then. I'm going to get myself a flight controller ordered and get the rest of it built up. So what I'll do is I'll have another video of post build. I think it works better than just watching someone build the thing. So I'll build it. Any snags I have, I'll record, put in the video and let you know what they are. And then after that, we'll do the maiden flight. But thank you very much, guys, for watching. Summing up, looks great. Can't wait to try it out. So thank you to Banggood as well. Please like the video, subscribe. It will help get this video out to more people so they can learn about the Dragon 2 too. And if you can, get out and fly your models like you stole them. Have fun. I'll see you on the next one.